Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening a little early. We do have a very large agenda this evening, some fairly interesting things to make decisions about. And so appreciate your extra bit of time tonight. So we'll call the meeting to order and begin with the land acknowledgement statement. We begin the meeting by sharing the land acknowledgement statement by respectfully acknowledging that Dufferin County resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Teotani and Arondaron, Anishinaabe, and the Anishinaabes people. We also acknowledge that various municipalities within the County of Dufferin reside within the treaty lands named under the Haldeman Deed of 1784 and two of the Williams Treaties of 1818, Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase, and Treaty 19, the Agistas Treaty. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and tradition. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. We'll move into a roll call. I'll ask the clerk to do the roll call.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Krillman?
Present.
Councillor Gardhouse?
Present.
Councillor Garretts?
Oh, present.
Councillor Hall is absent. Councillor Hawkins?
Present.
Councillor Little?
Here.
Councillor McLean?
Present.
Councillor Mills?
Present.
Councillor Nix?
Present.
Councillor Post?
Present.
Councillor Wrench?
I'm here.
Councillor Solomon?
Present.
Councillor Taylor?
Present.
Councillor White?
Present.
And Warden Horner.
The agenda and addendum. Moved by Little, seconded by Post. That the agenda and any addendum distributed for the March 13th, 2025 meeting of council be approved. All those in favor? Carried. At this time, or at any time during the meeting, you may declare pecuniary interest. Please state the interest and the general nature thereof. Declarations must be verbal and in writing and can be emailed to the clerk. May I have a motion, excuse me, to adopt the open session and closed session minutes of the February 13th, 2025 council meeting? Moved by Taylor, seconded by Garretts. If there are any questions regarding the closed session minutes, we will wait until the closed session. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. I believe there are no proclamations or delegations or presentations this evening other than what's on your agenda. We do have public question period. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll keep moving. So number 9 is a presentation and consideration of report. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes and recommendations of the Infrastructure and Environmental Services Committee so that Chair Taylor can review the minutes? Moved by Nix, seconded by Garretts. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Warden. The first report was Road and Bridge Capital Update. Thank you. Thank you very much. The first report was the Road and Bridge Capital Update. We reviewed the Road and Bridge capital project for the upcoming seasons. Most projects are currently in the design and tender preparation phase. Tenders are planned to be advertised in the spring, and work is expected to begin or to be completed by the fall. Is there any questions on any of the projects? Councillor Gardhouse, you look very interested.
I'm looking forward to them being completed.
Okay. So no commentary on that. The second one was a riveting report on the Dufferin County Forest. The forest manager joined us to review the annual forest report. The report details work completed in 2024 and a high-level work plan for 2025. Lots of good things in there. I just imagine we want some robust discussion on that. Seeing none. 7.3 was the municipal staff climate change training. It was regarding the climate change training staff have taken. Mandatory climate change training was implemented in 2024 to strengthen staff capacity and align with its corporate strategic plan goal of climate leadership. 400 individuals took this training. Any commentary or thoughts on that? Seeing none. 7.4 was the Better Homes Dufferin update, big part of what we're trying to do here at the county. And Better Homes Dufferin report provided an update on the progress in advancing Better Homes Dufferin program, a residential energy retrofit program designed to support homeowners in making energy efficient upgrades, reducing energy costs, lowering greenhouse gas emissions. The program is designed to use the property assessed clean energy, leveraging the local improvement charge mechanism for accessible financing. Dufferin County serves as a financial lead, securing funding through the Federation of the Canadian Municipalities, Green Municipal Fund, Community Efficiency Planning program. Local municipalities must pass an LIC bylaw to ensure resident participation. County staff will provide a bylaw template for consideration over the next month. Any commentary on that? Councillor Creelman, you look like you want to talk about it. No. No. No one? No one. Okay. 7.5 is the Future Ready Dufferin Sustainable Neighborhood Metrics. Dufferin, Grey, Wellington counties have co-developed a future-ready sustainable neighborhood metrics to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from new developments. This flexible points-based system replaces the initial tiered approach, responding to stakeholder feedback while aligning with regional climate and strategic goals. The metrics focus on building performance, community design, and climate resilience, addressing energy efficiency, transportation, stormwater management, and biodiversity. Benefits include lower emissions, improved housing affordability, and economic growth through workplace development. A new dedicated implementation staff lead will support municipal rollout. Key milestones include finalizing the business and talent attraction plan, preparing finalized program, and presenting the metrics to council. Any questions or comments there? Seeing none. The next one is the new operations center. This is a significant project that we have. The existing Primrose Operations Center, as you know, is unable to meet the increasing demands. A data-driven analysis identified County Road 109 between Grand Valley and Orangeville as the optimum location for a new facility. Any questions or commentary on that? Seeing none. And then a few other things. So in the discussion portion, Councillor McLean brought forth road safety for horse and buggies. It was a great discussion. The Director of Public Works noted the county has re-engaged the Mennonite community, noting staff are presently working on more signage and on an education awareness campaign. The second piece of that was the Township of Melanchthon. The committee continued their discussion regarding a resolution from Melanchthon to request the County of Dufferin set aside funding to secure additional equipment, resources, and patrol officers to add enforcement. As policing is a local municipality, county staff did not budget for policing at the county level. After much discussion, a motion that the county invest funds into additional policing measures to patrol county roads lost. Any commentary or questions on that? No, seeing none. And again, 9.2 is the Township Melanchthon. The committee also discussed another resolution from Melanchthon and an accompanying resolution of support from Shelburne to request traffic calming measures to be implemented at County Road 17 and Highway 10. Staff noted doing work within the functional footprint of the jurisdiction's intersection is not advisable or accepted. Staff are working to get the collision tracking software up and running, as well as completing a road safety plan, which will help us address road safety in a proactive manner within the county. The data obtained can help the county advocate to improve the intersection. Thoughts or comments? Councillor Creelman.
Thanks, Chair and Councillor Creelman. We recently had a delegation about road safety specific to this intersection at Roma. Blanked my mind there for a second. And we mentioned that the issue around the functional footprint and the county having concerns about working in that functional footprint. What we got from the ministry was they are more than happy to collaborate with the county to make that road work better. So what I would like to see is a a commitment here that we will, at the county, at the Public Works Department, reach out to the ministry, whoever is responsible for that specific intersection, and try to come to some kind of an agreement or push the issue of road safety or somehow get this done. I mean, we've been talking about this now for the better part of 2 years. There's nothing been happening. And while I don't want to start pointing fingers, I mean, if the province is the obstacle, then let's talk to the province at a staff level, try to come to some resolution, try to get some safety improvements done to that intersection. Thank you.
Councillor Quinlan?
I actually I'm looking for some guidance here. I wanted to raise an issue of whether or not Scott has yet heard when we are to see the MTO Highway 10 safety study, which by my reckoning is over a year overdue, and then speak to an issue of a very serious collision at the intersection. I think of it as Highway 10 and Hockley Road last Friday, actually quite cataclysmic from all descriptions, and ask that we consider renewing our request for an advanced green at that intersection. I think County Council voted to approach the ministry for that, and we were turned down flat. I think it's time we go back at it again.
Mr. Burns?
Through you, Warden. Sorry. I don't have any new information on the MTO study, but we certainly can reach out to our colleagues and see if there is an update. I think that's all I can offer on that at this point.
Councillor Quinlan, did you have anything further on it?
Well, I'd like to see us renew our request for an advanced green at that intersection. I don't know whether we do that here or under other business, new business.
Let's deal with it now. So you want to make...
So you want to make that motion?
So I'm motion that we renew our request for an advanced green for northbound traffic at that intersection.
Yeah, we have the motion on the floor, but we'll take that one when you're finished with this discussion then.
So continue on.
Yeah, and we'll come back to that motion.
Okay, so we'll come back to it afterwards. Okay, Councillor McLean?
Thank you. And just on Councillor Creelman's question, during our Roma delegation with the MTO, they did indicate that the Highway 10 study was supposed to be completed and shared by the end of February. Now, we've had a provincial election since then, so I think if it's possible, as Scott mentioned, that he could reach out to his counterparts in the ministry to see when we can expect that. That would be great. I believe the Ford government is selecting their cabinet next week. And so there might be an opportunity to send a note on to minister staff as well after next week.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion on the floor. Would anyone like to speak to this further? No? Seeing none? All in favor? Anyone opposed? That motion carries. Okay.
John, can you, do you have your motion?
Yes, I off the top of my head, I think I can move that we renew our request for an advanced green at the intersection of Highway 10 and, as I call it, Hockley Road, but everybody knows that intersection very well.
So I have a motion. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Fred? All those in favor of that motion? Carried. So I'm assuming then you've been given direction, Scott, to carry on with MTO as soon as they get themselves together. Is that everything, sir?
There's just two more items, if I could.
Okay.
So just really quickly, so Shelburne.
We already voted on it.
What?
We just voted on that motion.
On the township of Shelburne?
No, the motion was on the minutes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But everything?
There was 2 other items, but that's okay.
Go
There was-
ahead, add them then, go ahead.
No, I feel like I don't want to.
No, that's okay. Don't bite.
How about this? There is mention of an the committee went into closed session, and then we did talk about pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality. And I think it's worthwhile mentioning that, and the rest of the council will speak to it at a later time.
We'll be discussing that later tonight.
Very good.
Okay, thanks, Todd. All right, moving on then to General Government Services. We need a motion that the minutes of the General Government Services meeting held on February 27th and the recommendations set out be adopted. Moved by Mills, seconded by Post. Go ahead, Chair Creelman.
Thank you. The first report that we considered was a recommendation having to do with a new asset management and maintenance management system. It's called Citywide, not to be confused with the CityView program, which I think many of us are familiar with. This new system will replace many manual processes and require a significant investment in staff training to ensure successful implementation of the project. And I think members will recall that we are under some pressure from the province to keep our asset management up to date and current, and that some provincial monies, in fact, I believe, are dependent upon it. So does anyone have any questions about our efforts to launch a new system? Seeing none. The next report from the treasurer had to do with the annual development charges report, routinely done once a year. We have a development charges reserve fund at the end of 2024 of nearly $5.5 million, 2.6 million of which is held for non-road projects, 2.8 million for future road projects. The new development charges background study, we haven't had one in a number of years, is to be conducted later this year due to various changes in priorities and cost increases. Councillor Nix?
I wonder if maybe Amy could give one little explanation. I'm roughly familiar with our municipal DC study and the charges we have, and I say roughly familiar with that because I've read when we've done a study. I'm not as familiar with the county DC charges. And the phrase that caught my attention in your report was that the DC charges for housing is going to basically disappear. I know that had to do with the change in government legislation, but it surprised me when I read that. So we no longer, when there's a house being built in Dufferin, they will continue to pay a DC charge to the municipality, but not to the county. And I mean, is there an explanation? The county has roads too. I was surprised when I read that.
Through you, Warden. It's the development charges being collected for social housing that is no longer being done. It's the service, not the on housing.
So the DC charge collected was solely for the service of social housing, not roads or anything else? Oh, okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Still surprises me, but anyway.
Any other questions or commentary? Thank you. The next item that we considered was the 2024 Statement of Council Remuneration and Expenses Paid. I think that's fairly straightforward. It's an annual report. It also has a component of the attendance at meetings. Any questions or comments on that? Councillor Taylor?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just think it's really interesting when you look through that report. There's 2 individuals on there that made every meeting, and I think they should be called out and celebrated for doing that. I wasn't one of them, but you know, I know how difficult it is. So they did miss a meeting, and I thought that was really well done.
Yes. Well, once upon a time when we had newspapers in this town that actually dealt with local issues, there was always a story about remuneration reports and sunshine lists as released annually. We'll see whether or not they step up this time. Next item and last item before correspondence was the 2024 investment activity report. This indicates that the county held nearly $53 million in investments at the end of 2024. Higher interest rates contributed to over $3.2 million in investment interest. The average return for 2024 was 6.3%, and anticipated returns for 2025 are between 4 and 4.5%. Any questions about our investment situation at the county? Seeing none, we did receive correspondence from the accountants, MNP LLP, formerly BDO Canada, and they provided us with a fairly exhaustive report of the services that they perform. Any questions on that? And that's my report.
Thank you. All those in favor of this report? Carried. Okay, we're moving on to community development and tourism. And I need a motion that the Community Development and Tourism meeting held on February 27th, 2025, and recommendations set out be adopted. Moved by Post, seconded by Little. Okay, if I could ask Chair Wade Mills to do the honors here.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The first four reports are annual reviews from 2024 of the four departments or divisions within this envelope. And if council hasn't had a chance to read through those, I would recommend that. Excuse me. I'll give a quick summary of some of the highlights from each of the four. But it was really nice to just kind of see in a brief summary form, a lot of the work in progress that is being accomplished in each of these divisions. The first report was the annual review from the Museum of Dufferin. It was reported that there was a 3.8% increase in attendance at the museum in 2024 over the previous year, and a 41% increase when comparing the period between 2019 and 2024. It was also reported that there's lots of new programming going on, as well as outreach activities that have been very successful, and there's also been some work to enhance accessibility and safety throughout the museum. Any questions on that one? No? Second report was the annual review from the Economic Development Division. A number of efforts have been made to enhance community engagement for the ideation, development, and rollout of a number of initiatives, fostering partnerships and community buy-in for the division's ongoing work. Questions on that one? Okay. Third report was the annual review of the Planning Division. It noted that planning reviewed a total of 144 planning applications ranging from official plan amendments to consent applications, and responded to 70 planning inquiries from the public. And those came in both through phone and email. They also attended some summits, forums, roundtables, and conferences, as well as initiated the creation of road sharing guidelines and the ARU, or Additional Residential Unit Policy Guide, and draft street naming guidelines alongside other county departments. Questions on planning? No? Okay. And the fourth annual report was from the Building Division. Some notable achievements that were noted in this report. The Building Division hosted 5 information and education sessions throughout the county. There were 471 building permits that were issued, with 112 of those being closed. 826 total permits have been closed. 6,888 inspections were completed. 2,818 building permit applications were reviewed with an average of 10 days to review a building permit application, which I think was notable. Approximately 5,800 phone calls were received and returned. 128 planning applications were reviewed, and 170 properties were inspected for source water protection. Questions on that? Oh, yep, Chris?
The source water protection inspections, are those related to the septic inspections in wellhead protection areas?
That came up at the committee. Raj, do you want to field that one? I believe that was Becky's answer,
Yeah.
that's specifically what it relates to. I can't remember who asked the question at committee.
Sorry, through you, Warden. Yes, that's correct. It is related to the septic inspections.
Okay, yeah, because that's what the county handles. All other source protection matters are the local municipality.
Yep.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Okay, anything else on building services? Okay. The next report was a report on building enforcement statistics. This report noted the new inactive permit fee, which was introduced, and noted that it's encouraged the closure of permits. 826 permits were closed in 2024, leaving a total of 1,420 inactive permits at the end of December. 124 enforcement cases were created in 2024, and 103 of those were closed. 26 orders were issued, and 23 reached compliance, and 3 resulted in charges being laid. So we're certainly making progress on those, but still some work to do. Questions? Okay. Next report was an update on the transfer of building services and enforcement from the county to the Township of Amaranth, which took place effective January 1st. I think county staff, along with township staff, have been working to kind of finalize the transition agreement to make sure that that's as seamless as possible. Any questions or comments on that?
Sorry, just one comment through you, Warden. I just wanted to let council know that there was a meeting between county staff and Township of Amaranth staff today. So we are making progress on the agreement itself, and it should be finalized relatively soon. I believe there will be a report from the Township of Amaranth CAO to Township of Amaranth Council at the next council meeting with some options available for the council to decide on.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, and the final report was provided to give an update on progress that the county is making in terms of delivering a MAT feasibility study. It was reported to the committee that CBRE Limited was awarded the contract to spearhead this feasibility study, and the final report will be presented to council once that's completed. And if there are no questions on that, then, Madam Warden, that concludes my report.
Thank you. All those in favor of the report as presented? Carried. Okay, moving on to Health and Human Services. And I understand I am giving this report this evening as James was, well, James is off screen. So, the first report that we had was a description of the medical priority dispatch system implementation. And Gary gave us a really fulsome outline of what that whole dispatch system is going to look like once it will be implemented. And the documentation is in your package. Any questions on Gary's report or any of the implementation that you might have questions about? Seeing none, thank you, Gary. Got off light. The next one was the fourth quarter report of, from the Director of Health and Human Services of the community services activities, and Brenda presented that one. Any questions on that report? Okay, the next one is the Canada-wide early learning childcare system. So as you know, we've been pretty successful in Dufferin County in the last year in having the creation of new childcare spaces. And unfortunately, what's happened with that is that as successful as we've been, we've exceeded our quota, and we are having to, yeah, terrible thing to do. And we're having to draw from reserves. Brenda, you can say it much more concisely than I. So just talk that through, and then I have a motion here that I hope we can support.
Thank you. Through you, Warden Horner. So to what Warden Horner was speaking, we did exceed our targets for 2024 going into 2025. Because of that, there is a shortfall in funding, and the motion coming forward is if the province does not recalibrate, because there is discussion that the province may recalibrate those targets, if they don't, could we draw from the reserves? And you may remember back during budget plans when we did the presentation, there was discussion around all surplus from children's services going into that reserve, and that was because of this. We've anticipated this, so just bringing that report forward for consideration.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion that we will deal with once we're finished the whole report, if that's okay with you, Brenda. Let's move on to the next report from the Director of Health and Human Services to provide an update on the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system. So that's that one. The next one is the home ownership program update. And this report, if you read it, you see that there are some folks that don't even live in Dufferin County want to apply for participation in the home ownership program. And the recommendation is to restrict applicants to Dufferin County residents, current residents, not ones that want to be residents. Okay, so that's a recommendation there. Chris.
Sorry, I wasn't at the meeting. I submitted some questions though. So it was, how long do they have to be a Dufferin County resident before they can apply?
Brenda?
Thank you. Through you, Warden Horner. There is no timeline attached to it.
Okay. I was just hesitant to restrict it. I don't think this is overutilized currently, correct? Like the program?
I believe in the last 6 months, it's been accessed 3 times.
Yeah. My only concern was if we're making it even more restrictive and there are people that potentially grew up here, cannot currently afford to live here, so they're living somewhere else, but want to access that to purchase in Dufferin. Are we removing those people from consideration? That's my concern. If this was being overprescribed or overused, it might be a different conversation, but that was just my comment on that, if we're making it even harder, I don't know if that's what we really want.
Something more, Brenda?
Just in consideration of that, when we approached this and reviewed the program, it was the full continuum of housing that we're looking at. So it's opening up rental opportunities within Dufferin, and that is a piece of it that we wanted to bring forward for consideration.
Do you have anything further, Chris?
No, I just wanted to make that comment. I understand why we're doing it and the rationale. Just that's something that it just struck me as, you know, I wasn't sure if me personally felt the same way, but I respect the decision that's been made, so thanks.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Thanks. And yeah, I didn't even think about that to Councillor Garrett's, but it does raise an interesting point that maybe we should consider. I don't know if there's a way then we could somehow wordsmith that into the regulations that if you have a, I don't know if you want to start using words like lineage or peerage or whatever, but you know, if you can show that you lived here and had to move for some other reason and now we're trying to come back, I don't know if we can wordsmith that into it. I get why we're trying to do it. It's just people who are never been here decided they can access this program, buy here, then sell later and move somewhere else. But if somebody was originally from here or spent the bulk of their life here, maybe there's some way we should look to find if we can sort of soften that edge off. You know, it does raise a good point. I know a couple of people who potentially be in that situation who've had to move in order to afford something outside the county, but would prefer to work and live here and even work here and can't live here. So maybe we should look at that a little bit.
It's in your court, Brenda.
Through you, Warden Horner, I think these are very valid points that are being brought forward. And one thing I could suggest is that we take this back and do a review and do a deeper scan to see what other municipalities are doing and then bring that report back.
Thank you. Chris, one more.
I appreciate that. I was not looking to make more work for staff, but I appreciate the willingness to do that, so thanks.
Okay, the next, sorry. Hands go up.
Would that be something that we would vote on, whether or not we wanted that to happen? Like, to me, honestly, and in no respect, no disrespect, but it feels like the boat owner who complains about the price of gas. Like, this is such a minor thing. I don't know that we want staff at this point in time going back to look at it, such a minor thing, and no offense to my two compadres here, but I'd prefer we just keep racing ahead. We don't need to keep referring things back. This is a very minuscule thing, and we shouldn't have staff doing that. We should move forward.
So, through you, Warden, perhaps we just separate this item out from the motion and you can vote on it separately.
Okay. That's okay. All right, so that's what we'll do is we'll take that motion out and we'll deal with it separately. Number 7.5 was changes to the Ontario Works program. And the last report was regarding changes to Ontario Works. The province will now be responsible for completing initial eligibility and determination on regular Ontario Works applications. Then Dufferin County will complete initial determinations on applications as it relates to emergency assistance, temporary care assistance, and under 18 applications. Staff will continue, though, to provide ongoing case management. Any questions on that item? Seeing none? Okay, so we will pull out item number 7.4 and the rest of it with the motion on the floor. All those in... Sorry, what's the matter?
If I could please get a mover and a seconder?
Oh, oh, sorry. Too many jobs to do up here. I need a mover or a seconder for this report. Taylor and Little. Okay, so these are all except the item on home ownership. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're going to go forward to the item 7.4. And we have the motion by Councillor Post and seconded by Councillor Guardhouse as a recommendation, but we'll have to do a separate motion, won't we? We will need a mover and a seconder to deal with this one as an entire council instead of a recommendation. So moved by Taylor, seconded by Garrett's, that this item be dealt with, not dealt with by staff. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So everybody understand how they're going to vote on this one?
So if we want it to go back to staff, we vote no.
You vote no. All right, so everybody understands how they're voting on this one? And the effect it's going to have? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 5, 6, 7. That's passed. Carries. Okay? Okay.
Yes,
Fred, do you want to make
I-
another motion?
No, I did vote for the motion. I think there were a lot of valid points, but Councillor Taylor brought up a good point, and I think Brenda highlighted, it's a very low prescribed program right now, so maybe it's not the best use of staff time to go back and revisit it. I think Brenda has the ability, if this becomes a problem, to bring it back at that time, but I agree with Councillor Taylor that Brenda probably has a lot more better things to do, sorry.
Okay, in addition to that, those two motions, we do have a motion that we'd like to introduce with the CWELC item. So this is the motion is that staff are recommending, so we recommend that, 1, recalibration of the CWELC funding allocation should align with actual growth targets, and that any shortfall be refunded. We will fund it this year, but we would like to become whole on that item from the province, and that we need to keep advocating to the province for a recalibration of the 2025 target for CWELC.
It's kind of a messy motion.
Well, it's not really an emotion at this moment in this document, so I would kind of, I think we can clean it up, can't we, Madam Clerk?
Do you want me to do it? I can do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Through you, Warden, I think the motion perhaps could be that council direct staff to correspond with the Ministry of Education to request immediate recalibration of the CWELC formula to reflect the targets as they have been achieved, not as they were proposed. Because I think it's important to note, and sorry, this isn't the motion, but it's important to note that we did not exceed the total target. We just got to the target faster than they had laid out in their timeline. So this would be a motion to direct staff to correspond with the Ministry of Education to request that recalibration. I think the second part would be that advocacy efforts with the Ministry of Education continue until we receive a response on whether or not this recalibration will happen.
Moved by Nix and seconded by Post. Everybody got that? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Sonia, for that. Okay, that's everything on the Health and Human Services. Have we got all our motions now looked after, Madam Clerk? Okay. We will move on. I'm now going to move to 9.5, which is the countywide transit and ad hoc committee report, and a verbal report I'm asking for from Councillor Post.
Thank you very much, Warden Horner. Just very briefly, just wanted to update council that at this time, we're looking to extend the Grey Transit service until June 30th. Now, the reason for this is as talks have been ongoing with Orangeville to provide, at the same time, Grey County had applied for transit funding from the provincial government, which would be ongoing funding that would allow us to fund our transit for 5 years. Of course, we haven't heard back about that funding yet with the recent provincial election. I think we were hoping to have heard about the grant funding before now. But with the provincial election, we're worried that our extension until the end of March won't be long enough. So we are extending to the end of June. As it looks right now, sticking with Grey Transit, if they do get this funding, will be likely the right way to go. They're able to provide the service for a lower price than Orangeville will once this funding has been applied. It will actually fall below our budgeted amount, which would be really nice, and allow us to have the same transit routes that we have now for a lower price with this funding. The one caveat to that is that this council had discussed doing fare-free transit to piggyback onto Orangeville's. With Grey County, we would not be able to offer the fare-free transit under this grant. So stay tuned. There's nothing to vote on now. It's just an update that we will be extending with Grey until the end of June, and we will report back as soon as we hear about the funding. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Little?
Yes, thank you. I just wondered about any discussion about extending the service to Grand Valley or some other areas out within the county.
At this point, our initial plan was to have the service from Shelburne to Orangeville and start there, and then to reevaluate how it's going as we go on. If this funding is achieved by Grey, it will have 3 counties all working on rural transit with the goal of expanding rural transportation ongoing over these next 5 years. So the idea would be that we would continue and start with the Dundalk to Orangeville route as we have now with stops in Shelburne and in Melanchthon, and look at the data as it comes in for usage and find out where we can expand next, where the next spot would be. But part of this grant is recognizing that rural transportation is challenging and requires a little bit more of a collaborative approach.
Carry on.
Right, I just wanted to do a follow-up with that then. Do we know, first of all, I guess I'm asking the committee if we've done any research to know whether Grand Valley would like to have, or would utilize a service from Grand Valley to Orangeville. Mostly I'm thinking of those 2 connections. And if they would make use of that, have we explored not maybe the Grey County, but other options to put something in place?
At this point, I believe part of the work that we were doing was data collection to see how usage of potential usage of transit would work and what potential routes could be. So at this point, we don't have the data to be able to determine whether a Grand Valley to Orangeville route would be sustainable. One of the reasons that we know that this one will work is because it's already working. And as we can continue to have this one, we can continue to look at what those next best key points that we would want to connect. I think that's fair. Sonia, is there anything else you want to add to that?
Thank you, Councillor Post. The only thing I would add is that one of the differences going forward for us to be in collaboration with Grey County is this is, although it's still called Grey Transit Service, it would actually be Grey, Dufferin, and Bruce collaborating and creating a joint governance model for transit and really investigating transit options throughout the region. So unlike the previous Grey Transit where Grey fully controlled the route, there will be joint control and collaboration as we go forward if we move ahead with the Grey proposal.
Anyone else? Any questions? Councillor White?
Thanks. My question is route specific. I think if we're going to pivot away from sort of where we were talking a couple of months ago and collaborate on an ongoing basis with Grey Transit or whatever it's going to be called, that I can't remember that I just heard like 30 seconds ago. I think we need to talk about service times and when those things are going to happen, because there used to be a weekend service on that route and there is no longer. So right now, what we are paying for is a Monday to Friday limited service. And if we want to talk about transit and inclusive transit, transit that reaches the people that need it, then there needs to be weekend service on that route. I mean, I get emails from all the time, and I'm sure Wade sees it on Facebook too, people saying what happened to the weekend service that was there. That weekend service went away, unfortunately, just before we partnered with them. So it almost looks like we partnered and then they took it away, but that's not what happened. But, so I think we need to, if we're going to continue partnering on an ongoing basis, then we need to look at restoring that weekend service at the very least, in fairness to the people that we're trying to serve.
If I could, Warden. Sonia, is that something that we can have ongoing conversation with Gray about additional routes? We didn't talk about weekend service. We just looked at kind of what the current times are. So,
Through you, Warden, absolutely. I think part of this, again, work with Gray will be a joint governance model that will allow all 3 counties to have say over what makes sense in terms of routes, whether that be, time of day or the days themselves. So as we go forward, we'll be working together to try and provide the best possible service across the region.
Thank you, Sonia.
Councillor Guardhouse.
Thank you. So will you guys be looking in at ride share concept at some point with this? When we were at Roma, there's different organizations that are certainly out there doing that, looking for that private public partnership. And I don't know if there's any viability to it, but certainly I'm getting information from other municipalities that are definitely looking and wanting the province to actually bring in kind of a standardization to it, as others will be aware of.
Through you, Warden, back in November or December, we did provide an update again in partnership with Gray and Bruce counties, applying for a federal grant to look at in parallel to the fixed route service through the provincial grant, a federal grant across the region for ride share or on-demand service. So that is in the works as well, again, on a regional sort of collaborative basis.
Councillor Nix.
I know your committee is just still gathering data. Do we have any information about the ridership on this Shelburne to Orangeville? Do we have any idea how full the buses are?
Through you, Warden, there's great data already on the ridership on that route because it's been operating for 5 years, and Gray does collect ridership data. And the reason why we had to start paying Gray was because the route was too busy for it to be accommodated within the one vehicle that Gray had previously been approved for within their provincial grant. So it was busy enough that we had to add a second vehicle. The capacity along the route is 18 passengers per route. And they are generally full.
I think that speaks to the success and the success we hope to encourage expansion of. Yes. Councillor Creelman.
This is getting too far down into the weeds, but I hope there'd be a good integration with the GO service such that it is in Orangeville.
If you have a look at the agenda package for the transit meeting that we had today, it actually has all of the stops, and they are designed in a way that they meet the connectivity of the GO bus line in Orangeville at that stop.
Anything further? Any questions? Thank you, Lisa, for that. Okay, we'll move to 9.6, procedural bylaw amendment, a report from the clerk. So if I could ask the clerk to go through what this means, please.
Oh, thank you, Warden. This report is just basically housekeeping to make sure that the procedural bylaw is in line with the direct to council with a consent agenda meeting structure that was passed at the February 13th meeting.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a motion then that report from the clerk Office of the CAO 2025, number 11, regarding amending procedural bylaw 2022-26, dated March 13th, 2025, be received, and the amendments to the procedural bylaws described in report number Office of the CAO 2025-011 be approved, and the necessary bylaw be enacted. May I have a mover and a seconder for this? Moved by Taylor, second by White. Any questions on this one? Fred?
So when, under the revised procedural bylaw, it defines committee, this is, I think, an obvious question, but this would include the transit. That would be a committee under this bylaw.
That is correct.
Okay, just.
Okay. You said you weren't going to ask any questions tonight. Okay, Fred. Okay, all those in favor, please. Carried. Thank you. Okay, procurement bylaw, a report from the CAO. Go ahead.
Thank you, Warden. So at the February meeting, Council did direct staff to bring forward an update to the procurement bylaw reflecting a preference for Canadian or an ability to purchase Canadian goods or Canadian-made goods. There's a couple of amendments recommended within the report. One for the bylaw itself to add a clause around trade agreements. So as the report indicates, and there was an attachment to the report, Canada is certainly party to a number of trade agreements, not just the one with the United States and Mexico. So it's important that we recognize those ongoing obligations to have free trade with all of those other countries. And so in order to sort of address the current situation, there's a recommended clause being added here that indicates that should a party be in contravention of a trade agreement by applying additional tariffs, that there shall be no obligation to purchase goods and services originating from that country. Additional recommendations are for the procurement procedures and guidelines, indicating that for items under $100,000, that preference may be given to Canadian suppliers, and that's because those trade agreements only really apply to purchases of goods or services over $100,000 or thereabouts. And then for items that are over $100,000, a similar clause that bids submitted by suppliers originating from countries not acting in good faith of trade treaties may not be considered unless they're the sort of the only other option.
Those are wiggle room. That's wiggle room, isn't it? Okay. So may I have a mover and a seconder for the motion in the report? Moved by Mills, seconded by Nix. Anybody, any questions? Taylor?
Thank you very much, Warden. First of all, I love the way this is written. I love the wording of it. I was looking for areas that could be questioned or what have you. I think the way that it's presented is really well done. I guess just for me, not wanting to make any change, but just wanting to ask the question. So for the bids that are over $100,000, and by the way, I love the lining because over 100,000 could be millions, right? And underneath could be a pen. So totally get that. But on the over the 100,000, we are making our sphere smaller by not allowing, other countries who don't meet the trade agreements to bid. What if we understand that, to pave a road is 100,000? Yet the companies that are bidding based on trade agreements that are being respected come in at 150,000, and yet there's others that are coming in at 100,000. I assume we wouldn't know because they can't bid, but we would have a general idea that, oh, that's pricey. And again, I'm not asking us to change the thing. I just wanted to ask the question because I think the way it's written is great. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, through you, Warden. Thanks, Councillor Taylor, for the question. I think the way it's written actually does consider that because it says that they may not be considered. So it's not binding. It's just saying we don't have to consider them. It doesn't say we can't.
Councillor Nix.
My question is very similar, only I wasn't concerned about companies that we don't have trade agreements with. What if there's a bid by a Canadian company of $200,000 for something, and we get a bid from a company, not to mention any names of countries that are not respecting trade agreements, of half of that amount? I mean, I know Sonia just answered that it's written in a sense that there's some latitude in how it's interpreted, but I guess when I read it, I would have felt more comfortable if there was some more guidance on how much latitude we're giving staff to make this decision. Like, is it just a bit difference in the price of the bids, or is there some number we can attach to it where we decide? Anyway, you don't. Sorry, that's just when I read it, I thought I wish this could be nailed down a bit tighter.
Through you, Warden, I mean, certainly if council would like to provide some guidance on dollar amount, I think it really comes down to whether or not this is about protecting the integrity of trade agreements and wanting to deal with those nations that are complying with trade agreements, or whether this is really about, to be frank, best price. And, right now, our procurement bylaw is in many cases about best price, best value for the price. But this, based on the direction that we received from council at the last meeting, was to really be about focusing on either Canadian-made products or dealing with the tariff situation. So certainly up to council how you'd like to direct us.
Warden, I'm happy to go with what's here. I just wanted to express a bit of unease that it could have been tighter.
And maybe we could ask staff if they really are conflicted about that decision, they can come back and put that before us. And then we decide whether it's what it is, whether it is about our values or whether it is about.
That's actually a good
price.
suggestion, because then it becomes a political decision. And we can make that decision, not staff.
Anyone else? Oh, yes, Phil.
Thanks. Question number one, do we deal with international companies on a procurement level in the county?
Through you, Warden, on occasion, yes, we do. But I see CJ is online, so he could probably answer that better than I can.
Through you, Warden. Councillor Wrench, in the 6 years that I have been here, I have signed no agreements with an international organization. It would be rare. It may be an organization that has an office located in a foreign country, but technically saying this would be a very rare occurrence.
Thanks. So in essence, this is a messaging bill, right? And the question I'd have for council and staff, if we ever come to this, are we willing to defend this? Because we're going to get sued, right? Because the position that an international company will take is that they are still complying with the law. So I'm not comfortable doing this. And stop.
Hey, Councillor Creelman.
Is there not always language in the documentation that says that we are not bound to accept, quote, the lowest bid or a particular bid that gives us some wiggle room?
Through you, Warden, yes, generally there is.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Taylor.
You're excited to hear from me, I can tell.
I'm thrilled.
Yes. Here's the thing. We need to send any kind of message that we can send at this point in time. And if there is a small chance of being sued, I'm prepared to take that on. I think this is exactly what we should be doing as a public organization at this point in time, and be damned with the consequences.
Yes, Councillor Hawkins. Good evening.
I believe that word may is a very, very important word. It's we have it in Mulmer for the same reason. You don't necessarily, if a quote is too high or too low, you don't necessarily have to have it. And I believe Sonia said that word may is in there, and that's the reason why it's in there. And I don't believe we will ever get sued because that word is may is in there. Thank you.
Okay, so let's, did we have a mover and a seconder on this one? We did, didn't we? All right, all those in favor of this procurement motion? Any opposed? One, okay, thank you. That one's carried. All right, number 9.8 is the Homelessness Task Force member appointments. And this is recommending the following individuals for the task force member appointments. I need a motion then, a mover and a seconder. Do we have a mover and a seconder for this? Little and Guardhouse. That the reported Director of Health and Human Services 2025-09, titled Homeless Task Force Member Appointments, dated March 13th, 2025, be received, and that the following people be appointed to the Dufferin County Homelessness Task Force. K. Yvonne Bacalar, Terrence Carter, Sabrina Dabovic, and I'm sorry if I butcher these names, Grace Duchemin, Heather Hayes, and Sherry Ploward. Any questions on the list? Lisa?
I just wanted to make a quick comment that myself and Councillor McLean and Brenda were able to conduct interviews for all of the applicants to the committee, and we had exceptional applicants. I think there was 12 or 15 applicants that we had, 15 applicants that we had, and they were really exceptional. It was a very, very difficult decision, and I was just so pleased to see so much interest from the community and wanting to give back on such an important task force. So I just wanted to make that clear that, you know, we did choose these ones because we had a number we had to adhere to, but we had exceptional candidates that we interviewed, and it was very difficult.
It's wonderful that the community is stepping up in that way. Councillor McLean, you have a comment?
Yeah, just to build off what Councillor Post said, this is a really exciting initiative, right? And so we've got a really smart, experienced group from the community that's coming together to inform us. Over the next few meetings, we're going to put like a bit of a project plan together that will identify how we're going to engage and the type of work that we're going to be leading and when we'll be reporting into this council with recommendations. So this is our very first step, but it is exciting work, and we'll endeavor to keep everyone updated as we move along.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, all those in favor of the folks that have been appointed here? Carried. Thanks. Okay, number 9.9, Master Housing Strategy Update. This is some good news. So, report from the CAO.
Yeah. Thank you, Warden. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Does anybody have any questions?
Fred.
Well, it's just, I know we put $500,000 in the budget, and I think that's mainly for the design work, hiring consultants and figuring out what we're doing. It's not, when we get to the point of actually building something, I have no idea how they're going to be financed. But my concern was back to that earlier comment, if we are not going to get, would these houses qualify as social housing? There's still a bit of money left in there in DC charges. Can that money be used for some of this building? And then I guess my final comment is if we're not going to be collecting those DC charges anymore, there was that avenue, right?
Through you, Warden. So a few questions there, Councillor Nix. Thank you. So if you recall during the budget, yes, there was $500,000 that was to be put into initially in the budget to be allocated to moving forward with housing projects. But council also made a motion that any surplus beyond what was required for the childcare reserve would go into housing. So I'm not sure if Amy has that final number yet, but
I don't have a final number, but I would say it's approximately $1.8 million.
So we will have $1.8 million in a fund to start looking at these initiatives. As with respect to the housing development charges, there's none left of those. A very small amount is left from that. And then in terms of whether or not they will be community housing or social housing, that has yet to be determined. So part of the next phase of information that will come to council, hopefully within the next month or two, will include not just identified properties and sizes for properties, but also an actual financing plan, a budget, and potential partnerships to actually build and develop those and provide those services.
What's the dividing line between social housing and whatever?
Supportive.
So community housing and social housing are not exclusive. Community housing is really the housing properties that are owned by the municipality or a municipal housing corporation. Supportive housing is housing that can either be nonprofit or municipal, but provides wraparound supports for the tenants or the residents who are living in that property. So those supports could be for seniors who need healthcare supports, or those supports could be for those experiencing mental health and addictions. So
is that social housing?
that is supportive housing. But supportive housing and community housing or social housing can be one and the same. Supportive housing just refers to the support that is required in the housing.
Councillor Garretts.
Thanks. Just had a question on the size and type of building at each property. So the Orangeville sites are a 3-story, is it a 2-story? Yeah, 2-story, and then townhomes in Shelburne. Was that identified as the best option for construction? And with the apartment buildings, is there a reason they weren't going higher?
Through you, Warden. Thanks, Councillor Garretts, for that question. I don't have a great answer for you right now. I will look into that further. We have a meeting on Tuesday with the consulting team. I do know that they did consider a few things. One, they met with the planning staff from Shelburne and Orangeville when determining the appropriate sizes for those facilities. And also because I think the intention is that these are going to be supportive housing, that it is important to remember that they be kept to a size and scale that those supports can be appropriately provided. But I'll get a more fulsome answer for you next week.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Warden. Not really a question, more of a statement. When I read these reports, I know that we focus a lot on the supportive housing aspect of it, the seniors aspect, the people with different abilities that need supports and whatnot. And I don't know how we do it, and it's not even really our job, which is part of the problem. But I don't want us to lose track of the fact that we have to look for ways to increase rental housing across the spectrum. We have to start that churn in that sector, because if you don't start that churn at the bottom, nothing is moving at the top. And we have a lot of young families, people trying to get into the market, whether that's particularly in the rental market, and it's just not affordable here. And if we don't pay some attention to that sector of the rental market, what we are inadvertently doing is creating house poor people down the road who are going to 10 years out need to be in supportive housing because there is nowhere for them to get the support, and they're just shoveling money into a rental that they can't afford right now. So I think we need to pay attention to that and try to look for options to help that as well as doing all the other stuff we do. I mean, it's not a, I don't think, we don't want to be in a position where we're doing one to spite the other, and I don't think that's what we're doing. But I'd like to just mention that we need to focus there as well to get that sector moving somehow.
Yeah, through you, Warden. Councillor White, those are great points. In the master housing strategy, there were sort of 3 pathways identified to increasing housing supply, and one of those was around creating more of an enabling framework by adapting policies and processes that would encourage development, including rental development. So one of the things that will come forward in that final implementation plan will be recommendations around policy and how policies could be adapted. And many of those policies will actually be policies that will need to be either adopted or considered at your local municipalities, but there will be some suggestions there for you that you may want to consider.
You may.
Through you to our CAO, I was just curious, like, how would we summarize this discussion we're having today? And maybe I could take a swath at what we're saying, and then you could tell me if you think I'm crazy. But so we've got 10 properties that we own as a county, and then we've looked through them. We found 3. We're going to go ahead with working through the planning process of trying to figure out whether or not we could build on them. At this point in time, we're not promising that we're building. We're just looking at these properties, and we're optimistic that we're going to be able to do it. We don't know a timeline. We don't know full costs, but there's a will, we own it, and there's potential at these 3 places. Would that be fair? And what would the probability be that these 3 places get built?
Through you, Warden. Yeah, I would say that's a fairly accurate description. I will say that the report this evening was just an update on the process, and that, as I said, when the full implementation plan comes forward, it will include things like real budgets, and also partnerships and different ownership models that could be considered to move these things forward. And likely, the probability of these things actually coming to fruition and moving ahead will depend on the ability for us to have those strong partnerships and to work collaboratively with different organizations to move these things forward. I don't think that it's likely that the county on its own, with just using our property tax money or borrowing money, would have sufficient resources to be able to make this happen. So it will be contingent on strong partnerships.
I asked the question in that way, not to be negative. I think this is an amazing moment in time. I just think that if you're Joe Average at home and you're looking at this and you're trying to say, oh, this is so exciting, there's so many more steps. And I just wanted to caution everyone to temper their thoughts. Like, I think the very fact that we're here today looking at a report like this is an amazing feat, but I still just want to be cautious. That's all I was getting at.
Yeah, and I think, Todd, you have some valid points here. The thing that's kind of exciting is that this is the first visualization. We've been talking and planning, and all of a sudden we see 3 properties that could happen and 3 things we could do. And that vision now can be in our heads as we move forward and get those partners and line up the money and try to help where we can for those who need it the most. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So we have the report. Did we get a mover and a seconder? Okay, let's have a mover and a seconder. We're doing this backwards, and Phil has a comment. Okay, Phil, are you moving it? You're moving the motion?
If I could sneak in with a question first.
Well, okay, we've already done it backwards already anyway, so you sneak in. That's fine.
It has to do with the funding that's in the report, because I was curious. It says from my memory, we took out the $500,000 that was budgeted and replaced it with, and I'm looking at the minutes here from the January 30th meeting, of 50% of the surplus of 2024, not all of it. And I just wondered if I could get confirmation about that. Maybe I'm wrong. Happens once in a while.
Through you, Chair, we did take the $500,000 out of the budget, and we did say 50% of the surplus would go towards the reserve, but we also said that any additional surplus we would put towards the reserve as well if it didn't need to be used for anything else. So, and we don't have anything, so the full 1.8 would go to the reserve.
Okay, I don't see a motion to that effect anywhere from the budget meeting, so that's interesting. I'm okay with it. That's just not how I remember. That's fine. I will move.
We'll move the motion then, Phil? Okay, and I need a seconder for the motion. Councillor Creelman. So that's to receive that report on the Master Housing Strategy update. And all those in favor? Carried. Thanks. Okay. The next report is the report from the CAO to outline the vision for a Health and Human Services hub at the Edelbrock. Another exciting. So I have a mover and a seconder. Can we have that first? And we'll do this properly. Mover for Guardhouse and Little. That the report from the CAO, report office of the CAO 2025-15 Health and Human Services Hub, a vision for Dufferin, dated March 13th, 2025, be received. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, no. Okay, we're going to talk about it first. I think I need a coffee.
Through you, Warden. Again, a fairly self-explanatory report. I will give a few updates in addition to what's in the report. We did have a meeting on Monday with a number of potential partners for the hub, and I will say there is considerable excitement amongst the partners to move ahead with this type of a model and to really figure out how to provide integrated services for the community. Another very exciting update was a call earlier today with Dufferin Child and Family Services, who are the lead agency for the Youth Wellness Hub, and they are indicating that they quite quickly will be able to receive funding for some capital renovations. And part of this proposal does contemplate locating that youth wellness hub within this facility. So we'll be working with them to see what that might look like and to work together with DCAPS and the OHT to put together a bit of a proposal with respect to potential capital renovations. We don't really know exactly how that would move forward, but all that to say that there are a lot of excited partners. There is a definite energy around getting this moving and getting it moving quickly. And I think we're seeing that there is opportunity to receive funding from the provincial government pretty quickly to actually have things moving. So I know a lot of moving parts and probably, not a lot of concrete answers, but definitely a willingness to move ahead.
Okay, questions for Sonia. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you very much, Warden. I don't want to be in the way of such a benevolent project, so please don't take my comments in that way at all. Just candidly stepping back, it feels like a whipsaw that we've been on here, right? So we really been all over the map in terms of where we are going to land, and this is a good landing spot in terms of what it's going to do, so I'm not fighting where we are. My big concern is I live 2 doors down from the Zyna facility. I've just went through hell and back in terms of an old renovation, and I love that facility. I love the Zyna Street facility. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. We are opening a can of fish over there that is going to be surprising, shocking, expensive, and I don't know what the plan is and how we would afford that. I heard what you just said about, hey, the provincial government may come forward and would supply some renovation dollars. I just want to be clear that we're going to go down this path, we're going to do something benevolent, and then we're all going to, my prediction is not be very happy with what's happening financially to us as we try and renovate a building that has been pieced together over time and is one of the oldest buildings in the county. So there's my positive and my negative Nelly. I want to go forward, but I just want to call out we're heading down a funny path here.
Through you, Warden, Councillor Taylor, your comments are more about not this piece so much as the move
whole thing
of,
is tied, though, right?
It absolutely is, and I think the only maybe bit of comfort.
It's not criticism; it's worry.
I completely understand. We have similar worries. The only bit of comfort perhaps that we can offer is that the county staff location within that facility is within the 2011 addition, which was built in 2011. So it's not quite as problematic as perhaps the original pieces of the building.
Councillor Nix.
Yeah, I have a similar question, because I know when we get further on down, we look at the strategic plan, and there's still this idea of redesigning the Heidelbrock Center. I'm assuming now that other than the room that's going to be out there for the council chamber, we're sort of putting on hold what we do to Heidelbrock until this all gets settled, are we?
Through you, Warden, that's a great question, Councillor Nix. Yes and no. So I think the original vision for the Edelbrock Center that included a renovation of the front of the building, so the reception area, the council chambers or community meeting space, that is required no matter what happens to this building. I think the rest of the renovation around additional changes to what we now consider the staff space is something that would certainly be put on hold, because that would be considered with all of the partners.
Anyone else? Any questions? Yeah, Councillor Post.
I just wanted to make a quick comment that when we look at this report and the one previous to it about housing, these are two really exciting initiatives coming to the county. This one in particular regarding the health hub is exactly what this community needs. We always struggle with people knowing where there's to go, where they can access services, what services exist, how we connect them. And we're really lucky in Dufferin County. We've got unique nonprofits and charities and services who really work together well in a way that most communities don't have. So already we're better connected, but this integrates it even stronger and is going to be such a great resource for our community. If we are able to bring this together, I think this is exactly what we need, and we should be really proud of it.
Councillor Gardhouse.
I totally agree with what Lisa just said. This is exciting. I had the opportunity when they started to roll out the Ontario health teams, and we saw all of the partnerships getting together to start the concept of this happening here, and we were one of the lead areas in the province. And the willingness of all of those organizations, there was no hesitation. They can see the importance of delivering the service this way. It'll be beneficial to the people who need it the most. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then let's call the question. All those in favor of receiving this report? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, strategic plan update. Good job you're sitting here. It's a lot for you.
Do you want to move and second her first?
Oh, I guess we better have a mover and a seconder then. Moved by Mills, seconded by Post. Go ahead.
Thank you, Warden. This is the first strategic plan update of 2025. It lays out all of the strategic plan related initiatives that were approved in the 2025 budget. There's 68 initiatives, and as you can see by the detailed attachment, 95% of them are underway. Happy to answer any questions.
Do any members of council? Oh, Fred, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I have 4 questions, but first a comment. I think this is a great way to keep us up to track about everything that's happening. I mean, I really found it useful to go through this chart, but I got 4 questions. Do you want me to list all 4 off and then?
One at a time.
One at a time. The first one was when we talk about green development standards, it mentions that there's a background report and a guidebook. And all I wanted to know is that something that a person like me could understand? And if so, could I get a copy?
So I don't have this in front of me right now, the report that we're looking at, but I think those will be things we'll be reporting on shortly.
Reporting or giving me a copy?
And we could probably distribute copies when that becomes a public document.
Second question was on the funding a portion of the physician recruiter. I know we've hired somebody. What I wanted was an update. Have we found Have we spent the money? We hired a consultant. Have we found anybody?
Brenda can answer that.
Brenda?
Through you, Warden Horner. So yes, we were successful in recruiting a recruiter. We have not heard back. We haven't had an update from the Hills of Headwaters Collaborative on what the result of that has been yet.
Okay. Third question. On page 167, oh, sorry, I've already got, about Eilbrock, are we going to go ahead with this, or are we waiting? I've already asked that. The fourth question, a few pages later, on the Indigenous training, you've hired somebody for $33,000 or something, and you're going to start the training sometime after April. What I wanted to know is whether or not a lower tier municipality could piggyback onto this for a fee or whatever it costs. Could say the town of Monos send staff to these training sessions?
Rohan.
Through you, Warden. With the consultant that we're working with, there are threshold numbers that we're able to work with, and so in order to add more folks to it, then the pricing may end up changing. So we have to take a look at the exact specifics to be able to determine what that amount would be, and then if there was a chargeback to the lower tier municipalities, exactly what that chargeback would be.
Can't put any motion on the floor. Can we just ask Rowan could you let us know when that number's available, so I can take it back to our municipality and see if we're interested?
Through you, Warden. No problem. We can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fast, Fred. Councillor Taylor.
I just wanted to pick up on what Councillor Nix is saying, and maybe I'm being unfair, but it does feel like there's an opportunity with the DEI to roll it out to the other municipalities as well. And I wish we would do that first as we go and have it. And there's probably reasons why it isn't, but it's a great thing, and we have an excellent leader here at the county. The knowledge within the municipalities, at least the one I'm most familiar with, isn't as great as it is at the county, and I think we'd all benefit. I wish that we would extend at the beginning. That would be my comment.
Comment heard, Rohan.
Received. Thank you.
We're ready to call a question on the strategic plan update. All those in favor of the report? Carried. I think before we go too much farther, I think we need a wee bit of a break. There's a bit of a... Are we okay? I don't know. I think we need a stretch. Just a nap time? No, not nap. Just a 3-minute stretch here. If you have to get a coffee or do something, just get yourself energized again if you could. Okay? 3-minute break. is some discussion on the review of the County of Dufferin Act. And if you recall, at our February 13th meeting, we adopted a motion to review. I need a motion for the report that's before us. A mover and a seconder, please. Garrett's and White. That the report of the clerk dated March 13th, 2025, report Office of the CAO 2025-10, titled Review of the County of Dufferin Act be received. So we directed staff to provide information on the County of Dufferin Act and the process to make changes, which is attached for your information. Councillor Garrett, since this was your notice of motion, would you like to begin the discussion?
Sure, thanks. It's a good report. I think it gives everybody an idea of, what, first of all, what the act looks like and the process to make changes. It seems like it's probably not feasible to make changes this term of council. So, but I think my main point from before was just that at some point we may want to consider the composition of council, and specifically the breakdown based on the number of electors versus the number of citizens was my one suggestion. But given the process outlined, I don't think it's really feasible to start anything right now, so I'm not going to suggest anything.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else comment? Councillor Nix.
I agree with Chris, but my thought when I read it, it is quite a process to make changes. And unless or until someone could tell me, what changes are we looking at? That was the thought that went through my head. Why go through all of this? I mean, I don't know what changes we're thinking of, and it's a big process, so why don't we just put it on hold until someone's got a concrete idea as to what changes they want?
Anyone else? Phil?
Thanks. Yeah, whether or not we can get anything done this term, I think we should get started. Right? Like, to simply say, well, we can't get finished, I think it's kind of I don't know why we did this then, Chris. If we're gonna say, well, we might as well quit. I figure some of us will be here next term. We should start throwing around some ideas on what we'd like to see. So to your point, Fred, I think we should have some directly elected county reps. All right. I think given how much work there is, I think having people who are focused only on the county would be a good idea. I think there should be less of us. Would be the other thing that I'd look at. So those would be my two suggestions. And I think we should discuss them rather than simply saying, well, we're waiting till the next term of council to start this all over again.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor White. Then Guardhouse.
Some hands are starting to go up. I was getting worried this was going to be anticlimactic there for a second. But listen, I kind of agree with Councillor Wrench. I mean, there's obviously some kind of a taste to look at some kind of changes and what those changes are. I don't agree that we could have it ready for the end of this term to start next term. I think it's more likely that we would start this process to make changes at the end of the next term, giving advice to the next council what we think and let them carry that ball forward. But I do think now that we've brought it forward, I think we owe it to ourselves to at least have some serious discussions of what a future Dufferin County Council could look like.
Councillor Guardhouse.
From the discussions we've had, what I would say it might be a mute point, but what was impressed, I had a couple people comment to me when this got on the agenda, and it's like, wow, they actually are paying attention to what we're doing here. And the suggestion that they made, now this is from me wearing the local hat, is that every other municipality has 2 representatives, and what they said with the committee structure, which we're about to get rid of the committee structure, is I sit on 2 committees, and if you want with 1 representative, and we don't have a representative on all 4. So as I said, this is a bit of a mute point, and I agree with the fact that if we're going to make some changes to that it's not going to be two people from each municipality and have members at large like other municipalities have around us. It's something we should be considering. So thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Anyone else? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you very much, Warden. My thoughts are, this is probably not something we should get into this term. I don't see it as part of what we said we'd talk about at the beginning of the term. I'd rather staff be focused on the issues that we've brought forward at this time. However, if you're looking for commentary, I think changing the structure of this committee, this council, would make a lot of sense. I do agree. I think there's too many people. Sometimes it's hard to make a decision and hard to have business move forward. I don't have suggestions for what it could be, but my feeling is it should be kind of one of the first things the next term would look after.
Does anyone else have any thoughts about how we would even begin this discussion? You know, do we defer it to next term and say, oh, you guys look after it? Or do we some night have a discussion at a meeting or at a special meeting where we would just talk about it and start distilling and bringing forth some new ideas? Just some ways that we could start to get some alternatives floating anyway. And I don't think we have to make decisions this term, Todd, but I think we owe it to ourselves to talk about it if there's something brewing there. So.
My commentary would be similar to Councillor Taylor's. I don't think that we're in a position with the county to pursue this right now. I don't disagree that there are other options out there, that this isn't necessarily the best structure for us, but I think that if it's something that we seriously want to consider, that it should be part of our strategic priorities. Governance should be part of our strategic priorities. And right now it doesn't exist within our strategic plan. This is a huge undertaking for staff. I think it would also be quite expensive. I think we'll require a consultant to walk us through what the options are, how it could look for our community, and have some expertise at the table with us. And I just don't think that we're in the position right now that this is something that we should be putting on staff's plate. We have some, we've just gone through all these big reports just this meeting that were huge and that outlined some really big, exciting, and time-consuming projects that staff is already undertaking. And I think this is one that they don't need to do right now. I don't think it's priority.
Thank you. Councillor White. Councillor Little?
Yes, thank you. What I would like to see happen is we're starting this new way of dealing with a business with our 2 council meetings. So I would like to spend at least 6 months with that structure, and that may help us find areas that we need to concentrate on or focus on in a different way, and then maybe come back to the topic of reassessing our numbers, for one. I don't find the numbers to be a problem myself. I don't think it really heeds our progress, but I understand the concern, and my big thing is weighted votes. I hate weighted votes, and I don't know how to get rid of those, but I would like to deal with the new council structure first, and then maybe bring this back for review at some point before this end of this term of council, but for some further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Gil. Anyone else? Yes, no, Councillor White.
Thanks. I mean, I get, thank you, Warden. I get what my colleagues to my left are saying. I don't necessarily agree with them, mainly because, well, surprise, surprise. Mainly because, I mean, first of all, I think governance has been discussed an awful lot this term, so it is kind of on our plate, and it is always part of our strategic plan and our strategic direction. But I think if we say that we're not going to touch it now and we're gonna worry about it in the next strategic round cycle, that cycle doesn't start till mid of next term. Then you go through this discussion, and then we're having the exact same discussion about, well, it's too late to do anything now. Just we're doing that 4 years from now. So I think it's I think it doesn't have to be a large burning priority with a fire underneath our feet. But I do think it's something that we should start considering at, as a mini project or a side project, or call it whatever you want. But I don't think it really needs to come off the table. I think it does us well to look for continuous improvement within our organization and how we do things, whether we're doing that with 15 members or 16 members or 8 members or 4 members, who knows? But I think we should be thinking about it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, let's call a question to receive the report. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. So we'll try to figure out how we talk about this. Okay. Correspondence. There was no correspondence received. Any notices of motion anyone has? Okay, seeing none. Before we moved into closed session, we will be doing that next, and staff will place anyone who's not to be in closed session into a waiting room. Staff will lock the meeting and live stream will stop. People in the waiting room will see a message that once the meeting is open, they will be brought back in. If anyone tries to log into the meeting, they'll receive a notice that the meeting is locked. Once council has made a motion to move back into open, everyone in the waiting room will be brought back into the meeting and live stream will start again. May I have a mover and a seconder to go into closed session? Moved by Mills, seconded by Garretts. All those in favor? Carried.